welcome to another episode of D-List Diaries.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, ladies. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. I'm glad that no one's frozen.
I know. Good to see y'all too. I missed y'all so much.
I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving.
How is it being back into the tundra that is now Nashville, Kirsten?
Every bone in my body was so upset, because I went from 80-degree weather with the sun shining on my back and the clear waters rolling up my legs to come home to snow flurries. I was like, you have to be kidding me right now. I can't even believe my eyes. I was so angry.
Nashville gets no transitional seasons.
No.
Literally, it's like 90, 12. Just jumps.
We already can't use the fire pit outside because we need additional heaters on top of that. So, we had 2 weekends of it, but it's okay.
So everyone had a good week off?
Kirsten, tell us about the cruise.
Y'all, the cruise was so amazing. It was everything that I needed, but I also feel like it was so fast. So we went to comedy shows, we went to dinner, we went to the club. I did karaoke. I sung Halo by Beyonce. Of course I did.
Of course you did.
And we had such a great time. And I love the fact that you can have a good time, take a nap, reset, and get back out. And I loved, at dinner, they had the dancers come out and they were dancing on top of the tables. It was so much fun. It was extremely entertaining, but the food was not the best.
Oh.
You got to do the Royal Caribbean.
Yeah, we're definitely probably going to do the Royal Caribbean. But when I was in the office today, I was talking to some of my real estate associates, and they're going on a cruise. They're going to go on the Virgin Voyage to Greece.
Ooh, I hear good things about that.
Yes. So I was like, okay, I'm coming. It's in June, and I think it's a 7-day cruise to Greece, and you go to Mykonos.
Oh my God.
Santorini.
I want to go to that one so bad.
Come, you can go.
That's like an overnight one. So they dock and you can spend the night in the city and then get back on the boat.
Nice. But it was great. I enjoyed my family. I danced with my great aunts. I was able to, my little baby niece, she did so good and she had such a great time. She was just all smiles the entire time. And so it was just good to be able to enjoy that experience with my family. And I'm just so appreciative and blessed that I was able to do that with them. So I'm looking forward to taking my next cruise.
Yeah, they're fun. Did they have a casino on your boat?
Girl, they had a casino, and the only time I walked through the casino was to get to the club. So that casino was not about to take my money.
So I did not win, but my cruise mate / boyfriend did gamble every night and he won. And so now they send us marketing materials for a free cruise every week. And the first one they sent us was $300 off a cruise, and the next one's $500 off, and the next one's free cruise for you. And then he was like, babe, I just got one that said there's a free cruise for both of us. So they keep sending us free stuff until we're like,
you gotta go.
I know, we're
Take advantage of
well,
it.
what are they gonna send next? Are they gonna be like, okay, you can bring your whole family, fine, just come back and gamble?
Maybe. They want that money.
They want that money. Give me my money.
Well, good. I'm glad you had a good trip and we missed you. Gina, how was it feels like everyone traveled this weekend except for me, but how was your trip?
It feels like it's been forever since I've seen you guys, but it also feels like it went so fast. It was good. I mean, we just hung out with family, hung out with
Where'd
the
you go
grandparents. We
for the
went
listeners?
to Mississippi. So we went down to Mississippi, hung out with my boyfriend's family, and then we went to the Ole Miss Mississippi State football game. So that was fun. It wasn't as cold as we thought it was going to be, which was nice. So yeah, it was very relaxing. Just your normal family Thanksgiving.
That's sweet. I love that.
Did any of his family members cook a big Thanksgiving meal, or what did y'all eat for Thanksgiving? Do y'all call it stuffing or dressing? I can't remember.
We call it stuffing. Yeah, you too, Nicole, right?
Yeah.
I do, but ironically, I love Publix commercials. Don't ask me why. They really resonate with me. And they had a commercial for Thanksgiving and they said something about dressing the turkey. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What's going on? Is this what Publix is calling it now? Because I idolize them in their commercials, but it's stuffing.
Well, we had Thanksgiving lunch at his grandma's place, her assisted living facility, which was so cute. She rented out the room, you guys, in July. She was so excited about it
So
to host everyone.
sweet.
So they had family come in and they like served us. So we didn't bring dishes. It was like a Thanksgiving meal that was pre-planned. And then we went to his stepbrother's house that night and hung out. And we had leftovers for dinner from their lunch, which was amazing. So lots of Thanksgiving food.
That's sweet. I love when you're just able to like enjoy time with family. It sounds like y'all had such a great time.
Yeah.
Nicole, what about you, my dear?
Well, we were pretty low key over here for Thanksgiving. It was just Chris and I. We said we were not traveling this year. And my best friend was actually in town because her brother lives about half an hour from us. So she came and hung out with us. And then we went to the Predators game with her and her family. And that was so fun, except they lost, but that's okay. And then we ended up going, no, that was last minute, but we had planned the Vanderbilt, Tennessee game. So it was my first college football game, and it was about 12 degrees outside. So I was very unhappy with the weather, but the game was pretty fun. And then the next day I woke up and I had all these plans. It's like, I'm going to be so productive and get myself right after the long weekend. And I had my first, I guess, stomach virus as an adult. But when I tell you, this was like a new milestone in my marriage with Chris because, I'm very independent and I was so helpless and I have never felt like that. And I needed him to literally pick me up off the floor and take me to urgent care because I couldn't keep any water down. I was like, I'm dying. There's something wrong. I know something's wrong. I couldn't stand up. He had to hold me. And I have never felt completely helpless like that. It's like, thank God I trust this man because I'm relying on him to literally hold me. Like if he wasn't there, I would have probably had to call an ambulance to take me. But I'm feeling much better now. I'm able to eat. I had some toast. I had some soup. And it's like it never happened.
Did they prescribe you some medicine?
They gave me anti-nausea medication and said if I couldn't keep water down, I would have to go to the hospital because I was so dehydrated. But I was able, after the medication, to have Pedialyte popsicles. So if you guys have never had them, keep them in your freezer because they literally changed my life. So that was a weird way to end a nice long weekend. But there was a very strange man sitting in front of me at one of the games, of course, because don't I always sit next to weirdos?
Always.
He just had Jeremy vibes. I don't know. I feel like he gave them to me. He was offering me shots of 99 sour cherries from his pocket. He's like, do you want a shot? I was like, please, sir, I don't want your pocket shot.
And Chris isn't sick?
No, he was totally fine.
Ugh, I hope he doesn't get it. That's awful.
And he's traveling. So if he gets it, he's in for a world of hurt.
No. I hate that feeling. That has happened to me.
I'm good as new. Here we are.
She's back alive.
Go,
Hey.
girl. Welcome
Hey.
back.
Go,
Yeah.
girl. Welcome back.
Way to recover, girlfriend.
We watched some TV before I almost died. And before we jump into the main show, I just want to shout out Netflix for they're really bringing a lot of these true crime cases to the forefront, and like the Menendez brothers, JonBenet Ramsey, and they're reopening these cases. They're finding out all this new information, and I'm like, go Netflix, you're doing a good job. And I enjoy watching them, and I enjoy that we're hopefully going to get justice for the people who need it. So I just thought that was really exciting if you're a fellow true crime lover.
Yeah, I followed that JonBenet Ramsey story. This is very weird, but did you guys ever have the like pictures done when you were little that, oh my gosh, I forget what they're called now, where you dress up in like feathers and bows? What? Glamour shots. Glamour shots.
Glamour shots.
My glamour shot looks identical to JonBenet Ramsey. It is weird. We'll have to share it now with the viewers. But
I need to see it.
I've posted it as my like Facebook picture before, and everyone will comment. My friends are like, "Oh my gosh, you look just like JonBenet Ramsey." It's like looks like her pageant pictures. But I'm all about that. We watched that documentary on the way to Mississippi.
I do not watch true crime documentaries. I cannot.
Crazy.
Well, this one you can watch. It won't be scary. It's from many, many years ago. And they're trying to reopen it with new evidence. So this is great.
It makes me too paranoid, so I don't like to watch them. I'm like, no, I can't. I'll be scared. I'm like, they're going to come get me too.
Speaking of Netflix and coming for us, it's official that our season of Married at First Sight will be on Netflix as of December 14th.
What a Christmas present. We're so thankful.
So if you guys have not watched the entire season or haven't watched it at all, which I don't know how you found us, but either way, welcome. It's coming out for you. So everyone over Christmas break is going to have something nice to binge. And it's going to be better than the first time because we are prepared.
We are. I think we should do a troll of the week.
Okay. We got plenty.
I'm too nervous.
Share the trollest thing that we all three are going to have to decide. Maybe all three of us get our moment to talk about the trolliest thing that came for us in the upcoming weeks, because it's going to come.
Yeah, but it's so crazy because when I was on the cruise, this girl came and sat in the chair with me because I was sitting in a large chair and my back was turned to her. So I didn't even know she was approaching me. And she slid down so calmly and sat beside me. And my sister was like, "Who the hell is this? Do you know her?" And she was like, "Girl, how you think you're going to sneak on this boat like that?" But I saw a couple of people like who noticed me from the show. Like I was on the elevator with one lady and she was like, "I just finished your show." I was like, "Yeah, it didn't work out, but it's okay." I always try to go ahead and nip the conversation in the bud.
You should get a shirt. It didn't work out, but it's okay.
It's okay. It's all right.
I had a girl that sat next to us we saw Elf at the Symphony last night.
Yeah.
She sat like 2 chairs down and she was like, "I just have to ask." And I was like, the answer's yes. Like before she said anything.
Right. Yes, you're Gina from Married at First Sight.
Quick funny story that just reminded me. We ran into one of Chris's friends at the Predators game, and he was actually part of filming with us. And he's in law school now. And he said he was just talking to some girl in his law school class, and she had just moved here from New Jersey. So he was like, "Oh, what made you move here?" And she's like, "Well, I was watching a TV show that was in Nashville, and the city looked really cool." He's like, "Oh, what show?" And she was like, "Oh, Married at First Sight." I was like, what are the odds?
Was he like, "I was on that"?
Yeah, he's like, he was on the bachelor party and our housewarming, but we're like, oh, people are moving here for us now. Although that was not the case, but it makes us feel good to think that. But I thought that was so sweet. She was like, yeah, the city looked cool.
You're like, "Shout out JB, our camera operator." Yeah.
Yeah, but in addition to the trolls of the week, we can also share the nice things of the week because there are plenty of nice people out
That's
there.
true. That is true. I stand corrected.
Well, there are more trolls than not, but I do still get some really nice messages that keeps us going. But on the note of keeping us going, let's dive in. I know we skipped our podcast episode last week to enjoy Thanksgiving, which means we have 2 episodes to catch up on. But as we're doing with this new style, we're not going to do a step-by-step deep dive discussion on each couple because there are other podcasts for that. This is where we bring up topics that they've shown us and we give you our opinion. So let's kick it off. I think the first thing, I know I'd like to talk about because this is personal to me and I'm talking right now, so I get to say whatever I want. I wanted to briefly touch on Camille and Thomas with her lingerie. Because, they're getting ready for the honeymoon in whatever episode. She shows them the lingerie and she's like, "Oh, maybe I'll wear it. Cool, cool, cool." And then the last day or the second to last day of the honeymoon, she's like, "I still have that lingerie. Maybe it'll come out. Wink, wink, wink." And he's like, "Okay, cool. I'm here if you're comfortable, whatever, if not." And then she's like, "Maybe tonight." And then that night they have to show her coming out of the bathroom in her cute little purple night dress, which Camille, where'd you get that? Because it was so cute and comfy. And she had to be like, "Well, this is obviously not my lingerie." Viewers were probably like, "Okay, cool, not her lingerie." But it infuriated me because it reminded me of when Kirsten had to take me lingerie shopping and I had to wear this lingerie and I kept getting pressured into like, "Don't you want to be in the lingerie?" And they wanted me to do like a "come hither" to Chris like, through the door and have him like a happy little dog seeing me. It's like, no. So it was so infuriating because I just felt for her. Like she obviously isn't comfortable wearing the lingerie in front of him. And if she is, she doesn't want it on camera and she has to sit and address why she's in a cute little nightgown.
It's like, couldn't there be a different topic? Like, couldn't they have just left it out? Like, out of the hundreds of hours that you have of footage, why did that have to
Did she need to address it?
Yeah.
Why she was in a nightgown?
Just let it go.
Yeah, they just try to keep the content the same. But no one, like you said, I wouldn't want to come out with my lingerie on TV. This is not the show for that. This is real life, and she has to go to work after the show it's over. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that part either. You know, like we still have our lives outside the show. So it's like, no, she's not going to come out with her lingerie on. Like, no.
How many people would have been like, oh, she packed lingerie, but we never saw her in it? There's a missing
nobody.
storyline. Like, no one's connecting those dots.
No, nobody wants to see that. Like, so
Right.
awkward,
Yeah.
uncomfy.
Yeah. So Camille, we understand, and we want to know where you got that cute little purple night dress. I know Kirsten wants that. She loves a good night dress.
Sure do. Love it. My friends are like, you're wearing a gown to bed? I'm like, yes. You're wearing a night dress? I'm like, yes. I love sleeping in night dresses.
A little nighty.
Every time I FaceTime her, she's got her little like sexy nightie on. I'm like, this is for me?
Of course.
I love it.
Cute.
That was my first tangent of the day. But I think a general hot topic that I feel like carried over from one episode to another is it's their first night in the new apartments, and Madison left and then did not come home and slept at her old apartment. And I feel like there was more to that we didn't see because Alan was like, no, it's totally cool, even though I think it wasn't totally cool. But how do you guys feel about that? Because I feel like your first night, even if you're not into the guy, like you should spend it there.
I didn't. I
You
didn't. No.
But when you came back from the honeymoon, were you planning to not move in that moment, or were you still undecided?
I was planning to not move in that moment.
Did you guys actually move in on camera right after the honeymoon? I can't remember.
So I had said that I didn't want to move in right then. And truly it was portrayed on the show for those that are about to watch. It was portrayed on the show as me making this big deal about not wanting to move in at all. But in reality, it was just after our honeymoon, I was so mentally exhausted that I was at the point of wanting to quit solely based off of production. Like I wanted to get away. I didn't want to answer any more questions. I didn't want to talk about the fact that Clint and I were not physically attracted to each other another second. I was like over it. And it reminds me of, I know we'll get into David and Michelle, but it reminds me of the same thing. Like it's very obvious when you're harping on a topic and it's not you that's wanting to harp on it. So my only escape from that was not moving in. I was like, if I can just stay at my apartment away from him, then they can't force me to continue to talk about this. And so that was what I wanted. I was like, I just don't feel comfortable moving in yet, but it was like, I just don't want to talk about this same thing anymore. So I want like a day or two away, which might not have been the best case, but it worked for me. I knew if I didn't do it, I was going to like have a meltdown.
I feel like it is important to take a step back. And it kind of goes back to our conversation that we had a couple of episodes ago where you just have to reset yourself, because you can't do that when you're surrounded by, when you're filming and when you have to be with your husband. Like you can't gather your thoughts and calm your nerves. So no, that was important for you to take a step back and be like, okay, let me reevaluate a lot of things right now.
And just to take a step away from feeling so forced.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes,
we had nothing there. Like, we didn't feel physically attracted. We didn't have chemistry. Like, all of that was working against us. And then you're forced to talk about it and also to talk about why. And it's like, okay, well, if we have to talk about this, it's just going to make the other person feel bad. And I think Clint and I could very much pick up on the fact that we were both feeling like, oh, I don't want to say this because this feels mean to have to say it. But like, I don't have any other option because they keep prodding. For me, I was like, I just don't feel comfortable yet. Like, I want to feel in a place where I'm a little more comfortable making that decision. And finally, when I moved in, I was like, I also am not going to do something like sleep in the same bed if I don't want to. So.
Well, you at least made that decision for yourself because you had spoken to Clint and you knew you were not feeling it. But if you did like him a little more and you decided to move in with him and then left to go hang out with your friends, I feel like that would, like, why move in then? I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way. Like, why move in with someone and say you're going to work with them, but then leave them? It felt very much like this marriage is temporary. I can put it on pause for the night. Like, it's your first night. It made me sad because I think that he was really looking forward to spending time with her. And had she not wanted to spend the night with him, then That's fine to say,
I
but
think it
say
was
it.
that. I think it just wasn't communicated. It's like
Yeah.
she didn't say that she was gonna stay the night elsewhere.
Yeah, she probably just had to disconnect for the night, and she probably felt like she has been communicating with him the entire time, and she's probably just exhausted from doing that. Because it's like we've been in this situation before. Like, it is hard to communicate with the person you don't know, with strangers, and it's like, okay, like I've already expressed to him a million times how I feel about this entire process. So she probably just needed that mental break.
I'm always looking for excuses not to like them together. And maybe I'm just looking too much into it, but I didn't think that was
And I
right.
do think, Nicole, like you're on the opposite side, right? Because you didn't have to have, like, you enjoyed being around Chris. You guys were getting to know each other. Like, I think you were attracted, like, you had everything working in your favor. And so it is one of those things that, like, it's wonderful. Like, that's great. But, like, you can't understand what it's like if you're not in the situation of being like, this is like tearing me apart to, like, continuously sit in the same room and feel like I'm going to have a meltdown because I can't produce feelings for this person in the
Yeah.
week that you've given me to do so. And every time I sit beside them, everyone's looking at me like, well, why don't you like him? What's going on? Why not? Like, it's so overwhelming when it's not there and you're feeling so forced for it to be there that sometimes the only thing you can do is be like, okay, I don't want to be around anyone, like not cameras or
Yeah.
anything.
No, I get that.
Who knows? Maybe she had intentions of coming back, and the minute that she was away, she was like, "Oh hell no, I'm
Yeah.
staying at my apartment now. Like, I'm not going back in that war zone for a bit."
I had a really hard time adjusting to moving in with Chris because of having someone else in the space with me, not him specifically. But I worked from my apartment every day because it just made sense logistically, but I needed that space. I knew I could not make a marriage work with him if I didn't have time for me to do my own thing when I needed to do it. But
So then
I took
also
that time.
imagine not liking him at all. You'd be like, "I gotta
I
go."
understand, but I just feel like she's saying she's into him and she was trying to work with him, and then it was just the first night thing that really killed me. It's
And
like
she
your
probably
first
feels
night.
bad. She's not into him.
I
She feels
know,
bad saying
I
that she's
know.
not because she's expected to be into him.
I feel like she's trying to do the best that she can.
Because she doesn't want to say I'm not into you, because then if she says that, it's going to open a whole nother can of worms of probably what she saw in my season. She's like, okay, I'm not going to say that because look what Gina and Clint went through when they expressed that they were not into each other.
You guys are right. Once again, showing me the errors of my ways.
It's
But
not the errors. It's
I don't
just
know.
giving you more insight from my
Perspective,
perspectives. Yeah, and from what we went through.
Well, she still should have communicated. I'm standing on that. She should have told him she wasn't coming home.
100%. Because that was a quick
Unacceptable.
text message or a quick phone call.
I digress. So we have experts finally. Experts have shown up. They do exist. And now they're tag teaming, which I don't know if that's maybe helpful, I guess, because we're kind of getting a bunch of different expert sessions in one. But I feel like one of the main things that I saw coming out of a lot of the expert sessions, and tell me if you guys agree or not, was everyone, but women specifically, everyone's getting so in their head. And I know it's hard not to, and I know I'm the queen of getting in my head, but I feel like the experts actually, and you might disagree, but did a good job of helping people get out of their head. Because I know for me personally, when I met, I think it was Pastor Cal. Chris and I met with Pastor Cal about something, and he was like, why do you think that way? I can't even remember what it was. And I was like, I just do. He was like, but you shouldn't think that way. I was like, yeah, I know that I'm overthinking it, but I can't
What's
help
it
myself.
about you when you guys said I love you?
No,
Because I feel like that was a
maybe.
conversation that you were like, well, I don't know if I should say it. And he was like, well, do you feel that way? And you were like, I mean, yeah. And so you guys said it, and then you're like, okay, we're like glad that we finally just said it.
It might have been the same conversation, but it wasn't actually I love you, because I remember thinking or saying like there's a devil on one shoulder, an angel on the other. I think it was asking Chris, do you love me yet? That's what it was. And I said, I do it as a joke. And I know I shouldn't, but sometimes I just like to do a gut check. And he was like, don't do it, whatever. But I feel like the experts did a good job of talking people through what they were overthinking. Like Michelle, they had her, make this whole list of fun things she wants to do with David. And I don't think she would have gotten there without the experts, whether or not they're really involved. she needed their authority to say, like, you're doing too much thinking.
Yeah, and I do appreciate when the experts do step in and they're able to guide each person within the relationship so that they can have a better marriage, because that is super helpful, and it's really hard to kind of get that through, the husband, the spouse's head, because it's like when we're sitting there trying to figure things out by ourselves, we don't have anyone to mediate what the other person is saying. So that is helpful that they were helping like all the couples mediate the differences. And I was so happy when Michelle walked in the house and she had tons of activities planned. I was like, I like to see this side of Michelle,
Yeah.
because we all know how it goes when we see one side of a person but we don't get to see the best side of them. So when I saw that side of her, I was not only happy for their marriage, but I was also happy for her, because she also had to go home and reset herself and come back in a positive space, because like people don't understand, like you're taking from work, you're taking from your regular routine, you're taking from your own space of peace, and you're combining your life with some person you never met. So I was like, okay. I was like, yay, Michelle is happy. She's in a different space now, and I feel like they're gonna have so much fun doing these activities. And when David saw that she was willing to put more into the marriage, he was like, you planned all that? You had all those activities? I can't wait to do some of those with you. So I'm like, okay, now he's starting to feel more engaged back into the marriage again. So it just takes time, and we all need that direction sometime from other people. Like, okay, how can we start to get on one page? Because I know it took Shaquille and I the end of the last little 2 weeks that was left. Took us 6 weeks to get on page 9 together.
That's all right. Clint and I didn't make it to the same page. No, I'm just kidding. We did.
It took us forever. So it takes time, because we are totally strangers. So I'm like, thank God. And that's why I always feel like it should be marriage counseling on the honeymoon, day one. The experts
We're
should be
offering
there.
it.
Yeah, we're offering it.
We're figuring out where it's at. We're going to be like spying in the bushes, like, Psh, come here.
Yeah,
Let us help.
We
exactly.
have some advice for you and candy.
Exactly. And candy, gummy bears.
And a margarita.
But yeah,
That is
I
true.
was happy to see that. I was happy to see that. That was probably one of my biggest highlights from watching the show, is like just seeing Michelle come in there refreshed.
And I do feel like a lot of the expert talks, like as much as we talk down on them a lot of the time, not them personally, but like the actual talks. I feel like a lot of that is where I did the most like internal growing, because I mean they sat and asked me, I think it was Pastor Cal one time, that was like, well, what are your needs? And I was like, this is such a simple question, but like I don't know my curated needs, like I really don't. And now my boyfriend, I mean, he crosses off, I think I've said this several times, needs off my list that I didn't even know that I need until he's done it. So it's like things that you never thought about previously until you're almost forced to think, like do that introspective work and think about it. So I'm almost excited to see these couples, like regardless of who makes it, and see what they learned
Me
through the
too.
process too of having to like sit in those uncomfortable chat.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that too. And he asked Pastor Cal asked another great question to one of the couples. And he was asking them, like, how do you measure, I think it was Michelle and David. He was like, how do you measure success? Like, what does success look like to you? Because success looks different for people, regardless of if you're in a relationship or if you're looking at your own individual success. And it's very important to know what success looks like for each person so that you can be more aware. And then I also feel like it is very important not to, and he talked about this too, because I used to struggle with this when I was in my last relationship with my ex. I would project everything to him, like, okay, we need to do this by this age, we need to do that by this age, we need to have this much saved up by this time. But it's like, that was what I wanted, and I projected that onto him. And so I was like, oh, wow, that's so important to know. Like, you really do have to have some type of self awareness.
And I feel like that's something they should be asking in the initial matchmaking stage, because everyone has a different idea of success. No response is right or wrong, but it seems like Michelle, or not, it seems has said that she's very financially motivated because growing up, she maybe didn't have that financial security. And where David feels, I don't know his financial situation, but he sees different things as success, like time with family, having a roof over my head, food on my plate. So I think if they had asked that question, like for him, living in a basement isn't a big deal because it meets all of his basic needs. But for Michelle, she wants to have X amount of money, which is totally fine. But because he doesn't meet that, it's already falling flat. So they're both successful in their own right, but to each other, they don't meet those needs of success. So that should be asked in the beginning stages of matchmaking because that's huge. I mean, Kirsten, most people don't have the wherewithal to know these are my goals, not our goals, and how can we make them our goals? So you're obviously very wise and mature and good at being in relationships, but a lot of people aren't. So I think it's very hard to expect people to make those adjustments, especially in 8 weeks. So that should definitely be something they ask and vet out ahead of
I
time.
agree.
It's actually really interesting because I would say 3 weeks ago, we started using something in the salon that, I mean, I brought in to like figure out better how to coach my employees. And I've always been like very money motivated, probably for the exact same reasons as Michelle. And that's been like what I think about all the time. That's like what drives my success is money and just like achievement, basically. And it works so much on an employment standpoint too, as a business owner, being able to know like, oh wait, I have employees within my business that aren't driven that way, so like I can't coach them in that way because that's not their idea of success. And it doesn't mean that they're not qualified to work here. It just means like I have to talk to them differently and figure out what their goals are.
But you know now how to talk to them because you also had the wherewithal to have that conversation. So I think it's great that the experts are having these conversations now, but had they had them from the start, there might not be as big of a disconnect.
I know. And Dr. Pia, I just have to talk about her. I mean, you know how I feel about Dr. Pia. For those of you that don't, I'm like, come on the show, Pia. Let's chat. I'm just kidding.
I know she's
No,
pregnant.
please don't. PTSD. PTSD. But it just, her like trying to show the receipts. They're like, she goes, oh, well, if you'll remember, we did ask you if you like cared about someone living at home. I'm like, okay, well, when you asked her, she was very clearly uncomfortable with that question because she wanted to say, no, I don't want someone that lives at home. To which Pia's response is, oh, well, if they're like saving for a house and this is this and that. And she was like, yeah, I guess that could work. And then she made it seem like this whole time that Michelle was totally fine if someone lived at home. Like, well, you were acting like it wasn't a big deal at all when she actually was like a little concerned in her body language, in her response, and in the whole situation. It just was funny to me. I was like, you guys are just having to harp on this.
Yeah, they did. And I always feel like it's so cringe because we all went through those moments too where we had to have like uncomfortable conversations. And sometimes we didn't have the conversations with our spouses before the experts came in. So it's like, okay, I don't even know how to respond to this right now because I don't want to offend my significant other right now because this is not a conversation that we had before. And so it was several times where I was like, okay, this is something that I need to discuss with him.
Well, and it's like, it's okay if she doesn't want someone that lives
Right.
with their parents. Like, that is okay. It doesn't make her a bad person.
No.
Like, that is her standard. So it's like, I don't know, it's certain things, like the same thing with Clint and I. Like, it's okay that I was not attracted to him. And
Yeah.
but when you're made to feel like it's not, and you're in the moment and everyone's staring at you like, what do you mean? Like, can't you just give him a chance? Like, what do you mean it's not okay that he lives at home? It's like, she was very hesitant the first time you asked her. It wasn't like she was like, "Oh, I don't care if he lives at home." And so it was clear that it was portrayed differently than what they're now making it out to be, even when they're showing the previous footage of it. It's like, she even said, I think at one point, she was like, I just, I know we keep harping on it. And honestly, like, I'm very sick of harping on it. And I knew she was like looking at all the producers like, can we not talk
Leave me
about
alone.
this anymore?
Yeah.
Like, can you guys quit asking me about this? Or I just want to like give up and quit. And it's unfortunate that you get to that point just based off of like people questioning you over the same thing that's actually totally okay that your feelings are valid in that.
Yeah, it just feels like you're being interrogated.
Over something that's super valid, like over something that's totally normal for you to feel. And when they question you, they're questioning you for the response that they want, right? So like, even in that moment when Pia was asking her like, so like you would be okay, right? Like if he was just saving and like living with his family in the moment because he's like saving for a home. Like that would be okay, right? And she's like, yeah, like I think that would be okay, I guess. Like she's thinking through it. But on the opposite end, like if she would have been questioning him and like and been like, oh well, you don't think he's like kind of a deadbeat, right? If he lives at home, like he probably needs to, I don't know, like maybe work on some stuff. Then she probably would have been like, yeah, you're right. Like he's probably kind of maybe not the best match for me. It's like it's
That's psychology.
the way they ask the questions is the
Yeah.
response that they want, and so
You have to learn how to have reverse psychology with them. I feel like
Yeah.
Shaquille and I had started to get that down pat to where we had started to control the conversation versus them controlling the conversation.
But you don't know at that stage. And I also feel like at that point, everything is so theoretical. And I know for me, there were things that I said I would be okay with that I would only have been okay with if everything else was good. So in Michelle's case, like if everything with David was wonderful and the only thing was that he lived at home, I feel like it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But it's on top of so many other things that he bombarded her with. But when they ask you these questions, it's like, do you want to potentially not be matched with someone who could be amazing for you because you've said, I cannot have someone who, I don't know, lives at home. The only things I keep thinking of are actual examples. Like he has red hair, he's bald. But if I said like, I absolutely do not want a tall man, because I said, I don't want to be with a tall man unless the perfect man for me is tall. But if I said he cannot be over 5'8", absolutely not, and they didn't match me with Chris because he's over 5'8", I would have lost out on a great man. So it's hard to say things are deal breakers when they're not ideal, but you could live with them if everything else works. But that's, I said many weeks ago, it's like they pick the things that you're semi okay with, and they're like, this is what you're getting. It's like you don't get the things that you love.
Yeah.
they build the narrative like weeks before. It's like the gingery thing. I'll never forget when they did my house, like my at-home visit. They literally asked me, they're like, oh my God, say that you can't wait to make lasagna for your Italian man. And my producer is on the headset, like, can we tell her to say that? Like, should we? Because I was like, oh, I love to make lasagna. And they're like, say that you can't wait to make lasagna for your new Italian man or something. And I was like, they are matching me with someone that has like darker features, darker hair, darker eyes. And that was before they even knew.
Why would they want to put an idea in your head and then give you the opposite? Because you wouldn't that lead to automatic disappointment? Like if they tell you you're getting something that you asked for and you're excited, or if they
Yes.
allude to you getting something, then you're automatically disappointed, even if the person at the other end of the aisle is great, but you're like, oh, that's
Yes.
not what they made me think I was getting.
Awful.
But that doesn't make any sense.
You probably were going to get that guy, but he may have backed out or something, because I feel like they were
No.
going back and forth between matching me with Shaquille and Aries, because they were like, what do you think about a mama's boy? And then they were like, do you want a man that has hair or no hair? So like they were still like you said earlier on, trying to figure out who they want to match me with.
Maybe they were putting me with Chris.
They were probably putting you with Chris.
You cannot have my man.
Clint and Nicole.
Clint and Nicole, it would be the first murder on Married at First Sight. And I love Clint. You know, Clint is like I love him to death, but he and I in a marriage would be so detrimental to this world. It would just, I mean, I almost killed him on the honeymoon and he wasn't even my husband.
Better
Yeah.
as friends.
Amazing friends. And that's the extent of that.
Oh, this also is a good segue though, because I know, I guess Karla keeps talking about Juan being like fun. He's always fun. He's always fun. He's always fun. Like, kind of like it's, I think, annoying her that he's like not being serious. And I almost wonder, I had this thought when I was watching it, but like Clint wasn't as like crazy, bizarre, like fun Clint off camera. So I feel like it's like however you cope with the cameras being around, it like exacerbates that part of your personality. Like Kirsten, you were very quiet on camera for a long time, and that's just how you dealt with the cameras being around. I think I kind of shut down at certain points with the cameras around too, where Clint was like all out when the cameras were around, and that was probably his way of coping with the uncomfortable. So I was wondering if maybe Juan is like a little more fun and like exacerbating that part of his personality, not to like show off, but just to like make himself feel more comfortable with the cameras being around. And she hasn't
Yeah.
picked up on that yet.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even notice that till like after parties and stuff when we were. I was like, wow, Clint's like a lot more tame. Because most of our relationship was on camera. But when we like go out in California and stuff, I was like, oh, this is like a different side of Clint that
Or,
I
like, normal.
appreciated. Yeah, it
Yeah.
just felt a little more normal than our field production, if you will.
Well, he also said at some point, it might have been an after party even, that this was vacation Juan and marriage wedding Juan. But when he goes to work, like he gets down to business. So I think he has fun when he has his designated fun time. But when it's not fun time, playtime is over. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic as they go through this relationship that I'm interested to see, but also nervous.
Yeah.
She's so free-spirited. It's like weird to me that she's getting annoyed with him being so fun. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
aren't you though? Like, I don't.
I think I get confused by that too, Gina, where I'm like, I don't understand why she's annoyed. It would seem like she would join in on the fun, but it kind of goes back to like, you just don't know.
Yeah, she's like such a go with the flow, free spirit. I'm like, why are you, what? A serious one?
I think so though. Like she's not silly. Like I'm a very silly person, but when it's serious time, I'm like, we gotta stop with the jokes and get down to business.
Yeah.
But she doesn't seem silly so much as just like, I'm going with the flow and enjoying life around me, but I don't see her as silly, but he's silly.
Yeah, I don't see her as silly either, but I definitely feel like Juan, once he gets back in his work environment, he's strictly work. And I can understand that. Like, I know how to go out and have a good time, but when it's time to work, I am focused.
And you know, speaking of them, Karla doesn't have a home right now because
Don't forget
her
about
lease-
Karla.
Don't forget about Karla. But her lease ended, so she moved everything into storage because she knew she was going to have the shared apartment, which makes total sense. But why is it that this topic keeps coming up with David, but no one has even mentioned Karla living out of a storage unit, which I understand. Like, I'm no shade to her. And Juan was even like, I get the situation, but I would be more upset if my husband didn't have a permanent mailing address than if it was his parents' apartment.
Dang, she lucked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish my lease would have ended.
You and me both. We had to break 2 leases, but
Yeah, dang. I was paying for that rent at the 505. That would have been 2 free months of rent.
Wow.
exactly.
That's probably why she's living out of the storage, so she won't
Yeah.
waste money on
Smart.
paying for rent. Yeah, but she's going to have to get a new lease because her and Juan aren't going to make it, unfortunately.
I feel like, and this is also something I gathered from the expert visits, is, and we say it every time, but I'm going to say it for the rest of my life till the day I die. If anyone asks me marriage advice, it's communication, and not just communicate, clear communication and direct communication, which I know I also say this, but Gina, it always makes me think of you.
I'm not being mean. I'm being clear.
Exactly, because they have a tiff on, on the honeymoon where he says he didn't even remember she wasn't there, which was unnecessary, but he definitely said it in a harmless way, but it was a harmful thing to say because he wasn't being mindful. But she then sat with it and stewed and didn't communicate how she was feeling and was punishing him for something he didn't know he did. He didn't know he was being punished at the time. And he even said to her, like, I can't fix what I don't know is broken. And if you're passively saying things and not communicating, I can't work on them. So I like that he told her that and she said she's going to work on it. But just saying how you feel in a passive, indirect way is not communicating. And it drives me nuts when people are like, yeah, not people, the couples, like, yeah, I did say that. It's like, you said it in passing while you were out to dinner. Like, you didn't sit down and say, hey, I'm having this issue, I want to talk about it, and directly said how you feel, what you need. And I know that's hard. Like, I say it as though it's easy, but it was hard for me for 32 years until I got married on a TV show and was forced to do it.
I know. I think that's like one thing that we all really learned
Yeah.
from the show. Like, there's points in my relationship currently where I have to be like, hey, like, I'm upset. Instead of just like walking around, like beating around the bush. And it's always such a better conversation to be able to just come out, say it, and then get to a resolution.
Yeah, that's something I had to work on too. And I still have to work on it because sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't even feel like talking about it. It bothered me, but it didn't bother me to the point to where I'm extremely upset.
Yeah, that's just picking your battles.
Yeah, that
Right.
too, yeah. Because if it really upset me, I'm like, now you know you're wrong.
Not even when you're upset though. Like, for example, last night we went to this like opening event, restaurant, Christmas thing. And I could tell he was visibly uncomfortable. Like, it was hot in there. It was so crowded. We couldn't stand anywhere because we just kept, there just was no good place to stand. And I could tell he wanted to leave. So I was waiting for him to tell me that he wanted to leave. And I said, do you want to leave? And he was like, no, we can stay. I know you want to stay, which I didn't because I was tired and we had already had the fun. But I finally was like, all right, let's just leave. I can't watch you like sit there and be uncomfortable anymore. And he thought I was mad at him. He's like, I'm sorry. I love you. I hope you're not upset. It's like, I'm only upset because it's okay to say that you are uncomfortable and want to leave, even if I want to stay. Part of marriage is compromising. So maybe if I did want to stay, I would leave unwillingly, but I would still do it. But we were on the same page and he just didn't tell me. So it doesn't even have to be like, oh, I'm mad at you, I have to tell you. It's like, say how you're feeling. The other person might be feeling the exact same way, but they're also not saying it. I could tell, obviously, but if you don't say it, then I have to be a mind reader. So in that situation, clear, direct communication would have saved us both 20 minutes of standing there waiting for the other person to say they wanted to leave. But we had fun before that, so it was worth it. But I thought that was a big thing with the experts. I don't say this with any judgment because we have literally all been there, but it seems like a lot of these conversations are happening for the first time in front of the experts. It's like, just say how you feel.
It was always like that for Shaquille and I. That's why I said it was it was very uncomfortable to have those conversations because it was conversations that Shaquille and I were not having on our downtime. And the experts clearly said that on some of the episodes to the couples, like, okay, these are conversations that you should have as a married couple. These are questions that you need to ask each other. So it is tough.
You should have told us that day one.
Right.
Which is why we need experts on the honeymoon. That's just what we're going to call this podcast from now on.
Experts on the honeymoon.
We need experts on the honeymoon.
Yeah. Experts.
After the experts, we saw some home visits, which I feel like they're interesting because you get to learn a little bit more about the person, but they're not super accurate. Like, I know, Kirsten, you didn't have any furniture, and Shaquille was like, this girl lives in the model apartment, but that was just because of the situation you were in with your current state of furniture. And, for this situation, like, Karla has the storage unit, but she's not normally homeless. This is just the situation she's in. So I feel like it's nice to see them, but at the same time, people put a lot of weight into them. But specifically, the ones that stood out to me was not even Michelle seeing David's basement, because we knew it was going to be like a frat house. And Mem and Akechi, she said that men have told her in the past that they get intimidated by her apartment and her lifestyle. And I get it, because I want to move in with her. That is a beautiful apartment. She's got that karaoke machine. I was like, Chris, this is what we need. But I feel like he kept making comments that were making her very uncomfy. Like, oh, this is nice. Oh, I feel bad about my place now, this and that. And it made me nervous because I feel like they're doing so well. But if the lifestyles don't connect, I don't know. Like, do you think, let me phrase it as a question. Do you think that's something that would have hindered your relationship if you were really into your husbands, if you saw them living completely opposite from you, like whether good or bad, like in a $10 million mansion or in a storage unit?
Mansion, no. Storage unit, yes. I'm just kidding. Depends on the situation.
Fair.
It depends on, if it's like trash, yeah, like that would affect. I think that would be more affecting. If it was like you're living, like Mac, I don't think that would have affected me. David, But if it's like trashy, like what's her name on the Love is Blind?
Oh, like if it's dirty, messy, yeah. Alex.
That would feel weird. I would be like, oh, this is kind of scary. Like if you walked into
that's more an indication of how they live versus
day to day,
what kind
like
of stuff they have.
Yeah, it's not as much of like a situational thing. And I did like how Michelle said, like, as long as I know the why behind this, it might be a little bit easier for me to accept it. If it's just like, well, I don't really want to pay rent, so I live with my parents. Like, just kind of depends on your why. But I mean, a mansion, no. Who's going to be upset about that?
Some people could. It could be an insecurity of like, they have so much and I have so not so little, but if you don't know the person, it could bring on an insecurity for sure.
I feel like with MM and Akechi, she's a different caliber of a woman. Like, she's a nurse practitioner. She has her own practice. So of course she's gonna have a nice living area. Like she does well for herself, and it really depends on what she's looking for in a man. If she's just looking for love and his space is not as nice as hers, she's probably not going to care about, like, if his space is the bare minimum and he may not have as nice finishes or touches on his place than hers. Like, but if she just wants a man to be a partner with and spend a lifetime with and make memories, that's not going to be important to her.
I don't think she cares. I think he cares.
Yeah, he cares. And I can understand why some men may be intimidated. She's a successful woman. She's a successful, educated woman. So that can be intimidating to some men, because men want to be a provider and protector. And if he doesn't feel like he can provide that lifestyle or what she needs, then he can feel insecure about that. But that's going to be something that he has to know within himself. Like, okay, what can I provide for her if I can't provide this lifestyle that she already has? But for her, I feel like she's looking for love. She's not looking for a lifestyle. She already has that. So it just really depends on the people. But like for Michelle, she wants a man that's equal to her or above her. So she's not looking for someone that is like still trying to work their way up in life, whether he can do it or not. She wants someone who's already at that level or on to the next level. So it really depends on what a woman and a man is looking for within that person.
Juan's apartment actually disappointed me the most because there was just so much stuff everywhere. But when I saw Chris's apartment, I was like, this is a total bachelor pad. Like the sheets didn't match the pillowcases. There was no bed frame. He had a couch that was so small. Like everything about it, I was like, absolutely not. But I saw that. It's like, okay, there's never been a woman's touch in here. And this is his apartment as a single man. He is a married man. I would rather not have to like take away another woman's touch. Or if someone has a really stylized apartment, like, okay, now we have to mesh styles. But with Chris, he was kind of like, these are the few things I really care about. Everything else, whatever you want. So with our house, we have a few things that are really important to him that have made their way, but it's either a joint decision or my decision. So I feel like seeing a total bachelor pad is not as problematic as seeing this like really nice, a woman's been in their stylized apartment. So that was really not related to anything. It was more just a personal preference. But I saw Juan's apartment with a hammock and I was like, we got to get this hammock out of there. Like, you don't need a hammock in your living room. You don't need your TV on a drywall cart or whatever it was. Like, that's not art. That's weird. It was just too much. Too bachelor-y.
That's
weird. Juan is weird. He is.
Karla might like that hammock.
Well, she didn't seem to. And it's funny because I don't know if you guys caught this, but she was saying like after decision day, could you see me moving in here? Because I would assume they had a conversation off camera that he has to stay in his apartment. Maybe it's a lease situation, because she said, I know you'll be there for a few years and I obviously live in a storage unit. So could you see me moving in here? And he was like, yeah. And we could probably get rid of some of your stuff because we don't need it. And they cut it and made it so blunt as though he was saying like, your stuff is trash. But I guarantee you, like, I would bet my life on it. The conversation was like, well, you have 10 plates. I have 10 plates. My plates might be nicer. We probably don't need them. Or you have a couch. I have a couch. My couch is newer and bigger. We don't need 2 couches. So, because that's a very real conversation when moving 2 single lives together. Mm-hmm. And I would literally bet my life that that was the extent of the conversation, but they showed it as, we can get rid of some of your stuff. We're not going to need it. And I was like, damn.
Editing.
Why are they doing that?
Why they got to do that man dirty?
My goodness.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I feel like I'm right here. I always feel like I'm right, but I definitely feel like I'm right with that one.
Oh my gosh. You might be right with that one, Nicole.
But I gave her credit for talking about after decision day, because I know I got a lot of shit for bringing it up. But I'm like, at this stage, they don't know what's going to happen. So what's the harm in talking about, it's not a no. They're not going into this move-in like, oh, we're definitely not going to make it. So why not talk about after decision day? So I gave her credit for bringing it up, because I know I was scared as hell. It's like, don't poke the bear. Like, things are good. Don't talk about the future. But had to break some leases. So
part of the process.
Happens.
So that was our take on some expert visits, home visits, all the visits. We would love to know your thoughts. So as always, reach out to us on Instagram at D-List Diaries and let us know what you think. And this episode is the last one before our season airs on Netflix. So let us know if you have questions as you're rewatching, which I hope you guys are doing because it's going to be fun.
Or watching it for the first time.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people doing that.
Point out specific things, specific episodes. We would love to clarify and give more context because there's always more context to be shared.
Always.
Always.
But on that note, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of D-List Diaries and for watching. For those of you on our YouTube channel, thank you so much. We love you. So email us. What?
We don't have an email. Should we create an email?
We do have an email.
We have an email?
dlistdiaries@gmail.com. You can email us if you want. You can email us. You can message us on Instagram at D-List Diaries. You can message us on YouTube, I think. I don't know. Email or Instagram. That's the best way.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So much fun stuff going on. But we will catch you guys next week. So thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.